All right, we're going to be doing meal preparation and planning tonight, and I'll start off giving everybody a tour of the website and all the different resources there for meal preparation and planning, and hope we can talk. Anyone that's new, if anyone has a question, comment, anyone that's new want to introduce themselves.
Yeah, just unmute Debbie first, and then maybe Steve. Good, you're unmuted.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie, and tonight is the first time I've been able to make it live, but I've been keeping up the last couple of weeks. I do have a question from last week's. I'm kind of confused. I'm new to lifestyle medicine, but not new to managing my diet for brain health this last 6 years. So my big question at this point, before I can really kind of relax and wrap my head around it, is, I've been taught that your brain is fat, it needs fat, and, high quality olive oil and avocados, and that is good for brain health, because brain health is my number one concern and cholesterol is my number two. So can you address that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you want to get your fat from whole plant foods, ideally, not from animal fats and not from processed fats like oils. So you're best off getting all your fats from nuts and seeds and avocados, and you're going to be getting plenty of fat. So even 100% whole food plant-based diet is usually anywhere between 10 and 20% of the calories come from fat. So you're getting plenty of fat for the brain, and you just want it to be the plant-based and the unsaturated types of fats. You don't want the saturated animal fats, because that clogs up the arteries, not only to the heart, but to the brain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I'm not a meat eater. And I mean, every once in a while I would, but I haven't eaten meat in 6 years. So, I mean, I've been at least vegetarian pretty much for the last 6 years.
And then it's important to avoid dairy as well, because that's like cheese and ice cream. There's a lot of saturated animal fat in there. And so you want to avoid that. And of course, avoiding processed foods as well, because of the extra sugar, and refined foods will cause inflammation in the brain too.
You mentioned olive oil, and if you give some further thought to this, you say to yourself, our species has been on this planet a long, long time. And through the years, we didn't have processed olives into olive oil for the vast majority of our time on this earth. Processing, squeezing a bunch of olives and dripping out the fat, leaving behind the fiber and the other vitamins, minerals, and nutrients associated with the bulk of the olive doesn't really make sense for obtaining maximum health.
Okay.
Doesn't in my mind. Just a thought.
That's a good thought. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Someone needs to mute. What does that sound?
Huh?
Am I the only one hearing that?
I don't hear any sound in the background. Are you hearing something?
Now it stopped.
Okay.
Now it's going again.
Is there anybody else who's kind of first time or new to the class, wants to say hello? Who sent you and how you found out about the classes? You don't have to, but it's always nice.
I do have a question. Just, I think one other time I asked about osteoporosis, and somebody said it was on the website, but I couldn't find it. I know sometimes I'm a little blind on websites. But.
Okay. Well, Scott's going to go online, and he's going to he can kind of show you the website and where to find it on there.
Oh, thank you.
It is a frequently looked at issue.
Any other questions? All right, let me go ahead and share out. I can start off
Okay.
showing that.
Do you want me to mute everybody first?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody. It will mute you too, potentially. So mute all. Okay. Okay. And, okay, Scott, I can see the screen. I can see what you got on there. The web page. You gotta unmute yourself, though. Still unmute yourself.
You must have done it again because I already clicked it once. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Okay,
I'd
can
already
hear you.
clicked unmute. Okay, so you go to class archives. And it's probably easier to go to one of the older ones. You could go to 2023. So you're in class archives, go to like 2023. And then you can go in reverse order here and you can look for the one on osteoporosis. So we're scrolling backwards in time here. There's what right here, September 19th, osteoporosis and bone health. So you just click here and that's the recording of that particular class topic. So that's some of the older ones. The other way to do the search is you just go to the class archives page, the complete class archives. It takes a little longer to find things that way, but you just click on the class archives here, and then you just go, it goes in, you click on videos, and then it just goes in reverse order. So then you got to scroll back, and here's another one we just did a couple months ago, osteoporosis and bone health. So you can watch that one, or the older one was there also. So yeah, that's where you find all the class archives. And if you're new to the website, haven't really spent much time on the website, just go to the home page and scroll down, and there's a website tutorial right here. So you can just click on the recording of the tutorial, and just it's about 20 minutes, and it's just me giving a full tour of the website. So check that out. All right, well, tonight I'm going to be talking about meal preparation and planning, and Charlie will show some pictures of foods and stuff. We actually also had a demonstration from a class attendee on Friday night at the Grange. One of the class attendees, Mariana, she came on and she brought everything that she eats in a day, and she kind of went over it and how she makes it and puts meals together and stuff. So that was really good. So I don't think she's here tonight. I don't know if she was going to try to do that tonight or not. It'd be difficult to do that from your home on a camera on a little cell phone or something, or a computer. So, but if she's here, she can chime in. But I haven't seen her yet. But let's go to, so we're on the home page. Let's go to resources. Click on the resources tab, and I'm going to show you some resources on this website that are related to meal preparation and planning. So we're going to come back to handouts from classes in a second, but I want to show you a few things here. Helpful apps to download. If you click this is just the Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen that we talked about a little bit last week as well. And so you can download those on either your iPhone or your Android phone. And it has basically here's a checklist of the 12 things you want to try to do each day or try to get into your diet. So that's always a way to kind of get started. So that's there. And then I'll show you this links to cookbooks. So click that. And these are just some of the cookbooks that we recommend. So if you're looking for recipes and stuff on getting started, we don't have any financial ties to any of these. It's just cookbooks that we've used ourselves and recommend. So there's a whole bunch here. It's a link to buy on Amazon if you want, or some of them we have at the Grange that people are checking out, but you can also get them directly from Barnes & Noble and other places too if you don't want to use Amazon or whatever, but just as a resource for some of the cookbooks. Let me go back. And then links to websites with recipes and meal plans. You can click here, and it's just Forks Over Knives has a meal plan, has recipes. Dr. McDougall's website has free recipes. This Monkey and Me Kitchen Adventures has a bunch of free recipes. The 21-day Kickstart, that's through the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So you can click that, and that gives you like recipes and a grocery list and things for if you're trying to get started. So those are some ideas. You go back, and then let's see, we got Next would be, oh, this cooking class, the free plant-based cooking class. This is through Switch. It's a free online cooking class. So you click on this, it takes you to the website. You know, all the information is there, so you could sign up for that if you'd like. And then further down, there's plant-based meal ideas for traveling, which is helpful. And then these are kind of more things for just getting started, kind of building on what we talked about last week. Dr. McDougall's Color Picture Book, which just talks about what foods to eat, what foods not to eat. Some plant-based meat alternatives, plant-based quick start guide presentation. This is a PowerPoint presentation that is really comprehensive. It just goes through what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, how to build, how to grocery shop and what to stock your pantry with, kind of just tips of the nuts and bolts of how to move toward a more whole food plant-based diet. So check that out as well. And then further down, if you are just trying to get started and you're not much of a cook and you're not really sure what to cook, if you're not on a tight budget, there's this whole Harvest meal plan or meal delivery service. They're actually really good. I use them all the time, and you can click here, and it's a little bit cheaper than eating out, but it's about $15 per meal. I get a few here and there, and you just can freeze them and throw them in your microwave, and they're all oil free. They meet the 1-to-1 rule on the salt, so they're all whole food plant based with no oil, and really really good and really healthy. And you figure when you eat out, at least when I've eaten out, it's like by the time you pay for a drink and then tip and all that, it's actually more than what these are. But if you can eat whole food plant based really simply and easily for really cheap. But if you just kind of want to have some of these around, it's a option for you. So, and I don't have Charlie. I have no ties to anything financially to any of this stuff. This is just stuff we've used ourselves or we recommend for people. So you can check that out. And then let's see. I wanted to go. I think that's it on this resources page that I wanted to show. But I'm going to go back now up to the handouts from classes. At the top here, click on handouts from classes. There's a whole bunch here. And for all the different classes, we often refer to different handouts and resources when we go through classes, and they're pretty much all here. But I want to scroll down to where we're talking about meal preparation and planning. And the one I want to show you first is the traffic light handout, which you might have heard us talk about. And so you can see it a little bit better if you click download the PDF. So this is just kind of green, yellow, and red light foods. And so your goal is to get most of your calories. So green light means eat as much as you want. And that's listed all here. Your fruits and vegetables, beans, whole grains are all here. Yellow light foods are better than red, but yellow light foods are kind of in moderation. And those are things like nuts and seeds and nut butters like peanut butter, avocados, coconuts, olives, dried fruit, pasta, whole grain bread, because they're just minimally processed. And then red light foods is what you're trying to avoid or keep as low as you're willing to go. And that's your animal products, your meat, your dairy, your eggs, your added oils, your processed foods, refined processed types of packaged foods. So that's the basics, the traffic light. Now I want to show you back here. Oh, there's also a list of no oil salad dressings you can take a look at. There are actually 2 on here that do have oil. They're 2 different Asian dressings, but I think there's like 34 of them, and I think the other 32 are all oil-free salad dressing recipes. So you can check those out, kind of going on top of the cookbooks and stuff I was mentioning to you. But the thing that I wanted to show you next is this meal building basics handout I created years ago. And what inspired me to create this particular handout is when I first started, really kind of struggled because the first book I read was Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and there was a bunch of recipes in the back of the book, and I was cooking them, and I cooked them. And I wasn't really experienced as a cook, and I just kind of really struggled. And to me, it felt like the recipes were complicated and difficult for me, and things didn't turn out very well because I was doing this on my own for the first 3 years before my wife joined me. And so I made this handout an inspiration for something that would have been helpful for me when I got started. This would have been really helpful. And so what it is not even really cooking a recipe. It's just kind of what's the philosophy of how to put together a meal. And this will be, you'll see a visual of this when Charlie goes over some of his dinner plates or breakfast plates and what his food looks like, so you can actually visualize this. But what it is you're starting with a starch and then you're adding vegetables. And so you might be thinking, well, what's a starch? Starches are whole plant foods, unprocessed. So things like brown rice and oats and quinoa and farro and bulgur, millet, barley. Whole wheat pasta would be minimally processed, noodles, and then you've got your beans and your potatoes. So those are foods that have more calories in them per bite. So they're still low enough in calories that you'll lose weight. And we'll talk about calorie density next week, this concept of calorie density for weight loss, but they're high enough in calories to make you feel full and satisfied. So it's really important to start with a starch, because if you just ate non-starchy vegetables all the time, big giant salads and stuff like that, you'd be hungry all the time. And then you'd be reaching for foods from that red light list, the animal products and the processed foods, to kind of fill the gap, because you're just not going to get enough calories in filling up your stomach with non-starchy vegetables. So you really need to embrace these starchy vegetables, because they're think of them, they're plants as well. Everything on here is made from plants or is a plant itself. And so then so that's your base, and then you add your vegetables, all the other non-starchy vegetables, leafy greens, and all the other vegetables you can think of that are not the starchy vegetables. And then this talks about how important it is to avoid oils because they have so many calories. And gives you instructions on how to saute your vegetables without oil, just using vegetable broth or vegetable stock, and it gives you the impact that oil has. So that's just kind of the basics. And then on the second page here, I have basically examples of meals using this concept. And so for breakfast, it's oatmeal, that's your starch, right? And then you're adding fruit and maybe some nuts and things like that. So it's just an example. And then with lunches and dinners, you see there's a different theme with a bunch of different themes. So Mexican theme, Italian theme, Asian theme, Northern European or Irish theme. And you can kind of imagine what the starch is in each of these. So for a Mexican theme, it's beans and rice are your starch. Italian, it's your pasta and say a marinara sauce, which is tomato based. Asian, it's rice and noodles and then with the addition of vegetables. And then Northern European Ireland, it's potatoes, right? Yukon Golds, red potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams. So you're starting with your starch with these different themes, then you're adding vegetables to it. And then you have different toppings. You could maybe add some hummus or some salsa or different things. And so you can kind of see here just by looking at this, you're not even really measuring anything or cooking a recipe from a cookbook. You're just basically starting with a starch, adding vegetables, and then fruit for dessert, for example. So I wanted to show you that because I think that's really important if you're just getting started on how this looks. And then I wanted to go back to meal planning ideas here. I'm not going to go through this whole handout, but it's another handout I created that kind of has a similar philosophy, but there are some recipes referenced in this particular one. So it gives you meal planning ideas for breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And kind of the purpose of this particular handout is kind of more traditional meals. So things that you might be traditional, I mean, things that you might have been used to eating growing up or even to today, to things like lasagna and veggie burgers or burgers and meatballs and nuggets and things that are kind of more kind of popular culture American type food, right? Things that most families tend to eat, mac and cheese and fettuccine, but it's all plant-based versions of all these things. And so sometimes this is a helpful handout, and at the bottom of this handout there's references to which cookbooks and stuff they came from or which website they came from. So it talks about doing a buffet style if you're doing a big family meal where not everybody's going to maybe be 100% plant-based. You can do kind of buffet style, a potato bar, a pasta bar, a salad bar, a burrito bowl bar, different kind of themes, and then how to basically have the different ingredients that you can kind of put into your own bowl or into your own plate, and so that everybody can be happy. So other people might have browned hamburger or cheese or things like that to put into their bowl, whereas you can just do plant-based options for yourself, beans and salsa and rice and vegetables and things to build your own plate. And so then everybody's happy. So it kind of talks about that there. I wanted to show that. And then let me see if there was anything else before I get to a video I want to show you guys. Oops. Back to here. I think that was it on the handouts from class there until I get to the, does anyone have any questions so far before I want to show a video from Sunshine, a trained chef that does cooking demonstrations for us on several occasions. And I don't know if any of you guys went to the presentation at the YMCA at the end of March, where she gave a cooking demonstration, if any of you were there, but I'm going to show a video where she kind of goes over her top 10 tips for meal preparation and planning. Any questions so far? Nothing, Charlie? Can you guys still hear me? Maybe somebody unmute.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you. I was muted. So
okay.
I don't see anybody in the chat with any questions yet.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead while you're thinking about that. Let's go ahead and show this video.
Hey everybody, it's Sunshine. I am just here to give you my top 10 tips and tricks for meal prepping. Meal prepping, as you know, is a wonderful way to make sure that you're eating your healthy meals, your life is more organized, and you're actually going to be saving yourself a lot of money if you do everything ahead of time. So these are my top 10 tips since I've been doing this for what seems like forever, and I don't know how I ever did it any other way. These are my top 10. So the first one I'm going to say is keep it simple. It shouldn't be something that's incredibly, extravagant. This is not a time to pull out one of your fancy Pinterest recipes that you found that has 30 ingredients and 15 different steps. Save that for the weekend or the days that you're not prepping. That way you can still be creative with your food and try something new. But there's absolutely nothing worse than having an incredibly difficult recipe that you haven't done before. And when you're trying to just, get through your meal prep and have everything ready for the week, save that for another time. So the next tip I would say is, in order to be organized, make a list and check it twice. Make that list of all of the ingredients that you need, everything that you need to prepare in order to make the day of meal prepping go smoothly. That way when you're walking into the grocery store, you're not impulsively buying a bunch of ingredients and not actually knowing how much you need. You don't want to have to go back to the grocery store to get stuff that you might have forgotten. I have done this many times, and this is why I suggest this. Really write down that list and know how many pounds you need of something, how many cups you need of something else. Just go over it. Don't do this the night before. Come up with a plan. Be organized. The third step I would suggest is when you're ready and it's meal prep day, or even the night before, have a clean surface. You want to sanitize it. You want to clear out any clutter, because you're going to have stuff going on all around you, especially to save time. You're going to be cooking multiple things at once. So you don't want to have a bunch of dirty pans all over you, or just who knows what you keep on your countertop. Clear it out, get it away, or even set up a fold-out table, on the side of your kitchen to start, playing with how you want to get these recipes together, where you're going to put your extra bowls, stuff like that. So make sure the space is very clear and organized. So the number four tip is get yourself some stackable or recyclable meal containers. This will really help you to know your portions and do portion control. When they're stackable, you can just put them in your fridge and you take up way less space, because these, you can get some bento boxes that have multiple different sections in the container if you have little snacks here, or you don't want juices to run into other types of your meals. Or you can just get the rectangular kind where it's just like an open rectangle. And then you can save these and either, recycle them and get rid of them, or I've been using the same containers over and over again. Sometimes plastic will erode over time, so you will eventually want to get rid of them if you start noticing any deterioration of the containers. But yeah, you can get them in 20 packs or 50 packs. And then you keep them nice and cool in your fridge, and you just pull them out in the morning, put them in your lunchbox, take it to work. And you can just live like that. It's really, really easy and convenient. The fifth tip I would suggest is get a kitchen scale. This is really easy for when you're batch cooking and you're cooking like a large amount of foods. If you have a scale, you can actually weigh to see how many potatoes you have or how many onions you have just chopped up. So that if you use an app like MyFitnessPal, you can actually know what your portion sizes are. Plus, when you have like a big bowl of the last results of your food, you can measure that, and then you know, well, now I know how many portions I need to make, and you can measure, well, this meal needs to be 4 ounces of this per meal, and it just makes it easier for you to divvy out all of the different portion sizes, and you really have a grasp for what you have available. So, you know, that kitchen scale is going to actually serve you in more than one thing, in more ways. So definitely suggest that. The sixth thing that I would greatly suggest is when you have, you know, a little bit of money to spare, you know, if you're on a budget, this might not be ideal for you, but if you have a little extra money, invest in things like an Instant Pot, a rice cooker, or an air fryer. Those are going to make it a lot more convenient for you to cook things in, especially if like you're using an ovens and you only need to like cook up a few things. Oven takes up a lot of electricity, and if you have an air fryer, you can actually cook smaller portions of things. They also help to make things more crispy, especially since you're cooking without oil. An Instant Pot is excellent for everything. So I'd also include like a crock pot in here, just because like there's going to be certain meals that you can just stick in the Instant Pot. You don't have to worry about it. Or especially when you start consuming more legumes in your diet, if you deal with like a lot of gas issues, an Instant Pot is really great because when you pressure cook things, it actually helps to relieve a lot of that excess gas in the legumes. So it's really worth your time and energy to get something like that. All right, and then to continue on with that subject, when you know you are cooking, it's ideal to make one of your meals a really easy meal, like a one pot meal, or something you can just stick in the Instant Pot or stick in the crock pot. While you're focusing on your other meals, like especially during the colder seasons, we always do at least like one soup or stew. And you know, you just cut up those ingredients and you stick it in the Instant Pot or the crock pot. You don't have to worry about it. It does all the cooking for you, and that way you can just focus on your other meals. Another thing, back to the legumes, that's going to be the number 8 tip, is plan ahead. For beans, you want to soak them ahead of time, and I would suggest even soaking them overnight. Beans will actually release more gas if you soak them first and then you stick them in the Instant Pot, and so it really helps your tummy if you're just not used to eating that many legumes. On top of that planning, you know, if you have been freezing your tofu to make it, you know, more meat-like, make sure that you're defrosting it like 1 or 2 days out. I get these big blocks of tofu, and there's been times where I haven't defrosted it the day of, and you're just sitting waiting for that to be done. So I would even, start defrosting it in your fridge like 2, maybe 3 days out before your day of meal prepping. That way, when it's time to meal prep, all of your ingredients are ready and you don't have anything else that you're waiting for. That also includes things like marinating. If you have anything that you need to marinate it, make sure you do it the night before. Just like put, you know, on your phone's calendar or your physical calendar, hey, this is something I need to do the night before, get it done. That way, you know, you're not waiting around for something. Everything is just there and ready for you. All right, and then my 9th tip is have an organized timeline in your head. We had to do this in culinary school, and it really helped me to be a better chef. We would actually have to write a to-do list and like timestamp of how long everything would take in order of priority and how long things take to cook. So for example, if I have a bunch of potatoes that I want to cook and I know potatoes take a lot longer to cook, I will start on those potatoes first, stick them in the oven, and while that's cooking for, you know, who knows how long, depending on what type of style of potato I'm doing, I can work on other things. as opposed to like sticking those potatoes in the oven at the end of my meal prepping and I'm just sitting there waiting for those potatoes to be done. Another example of this would be if you're making seitan or wheat meat. You know, that can take over an hour and a half of simmering or steaming. So I'd start that product first, and then while it's steaming, I can work on other things. So know what it is that you have to cook and how long each of these things take. Don't just come, you know, on the day of meal prepping, look at your recipes and start. Plan out what makes the most sense to start cooking or start chopping and work on those things. And this is also something you'll learn with time and experience, but it really does make it move a lot more swiftly. And like I said in the previous cooking class, the passive foods, those foods that you're just waiting for, you know, get those things going while you're working on other stuff. So just have a good organized timeline in your head, or even write it down if that's easier for you. And then my number 10 tip, which is I think the most important, is have fun. You know, meal prepping can be a fun experience if you make it a fun experience. It can also be total hell if you aren't organized and you're doing too complex of recipes and you don't have anything fun on in the background. Like, get on some really energizing music and jam out to it. I even like to watch some of my favorite TV shows that I've seen multiple times. I'll put on like New Girl or Friends, and I'll just put it on the background, put it on a speaker so I can hear it. I already know what's gonna happen, so I'm not feeling focused and like I need to focus on the TV show. I can focus on the cooking, but it's still like, it's comedy, it's funny, I can laugh, it just keeps me in good spirits. So have fun with your meal prep. Do it with a friend, do it with your family members or your partner. You know, get them involved in this too. I mean, when you think about what our ancestors were doing, they were singing songs while they were churning butter and while they were weaving their quilts and doing all of that sort of stuff. And so this can be a communal experience, something that, you know, is an enjoyable experience. So these are my top 10 tips. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me. I love sharing this information, and have a great time meal prepping. I know you'll do great.
Okay. All right. That's all I had to show you on the website. Questions, comments, let me stop sharing. Hopefully that was helpful for you to see where things are on the website for meal preparation planning, different resources, and then hearing from Sunshine. I
have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, Tammy.
So I'm confused about what's a good kind of oatmeal to buy for breakfast in the morning. Can you tell me the best kind of oatmeal to get? There's steel cuts, and you know, there's the instant stuff, which I know is not good, but
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, so we started with 5-minute cooking oats. It has a lot of soluble fiber and it's a healthy choice. Did that for about 6 years. And then we my wife didn't particularly like steel cut oats. Steel cut oat takes the groat, which is the oat groat. It's what grows in the field. And then it gets a steel blade that cuts it up into sections. That's a steel cut oat. It has a bit more fiber than the 5-minute cooking kind. And so it's slightly healthier in that respect. And then the groat, whole groat itself, has probably slightly more fiber than the steel cut oats, but probably not statistically significant more. So either the whole oat groat or the steel cut oats would be the supreme best. On a scale of 1 to 10, they'd probably be 9 to 10 in value. And then regular oats would probably be 8 to 9. They still are very valuable and very healthy. And so if that's what you're used to, doing the 5-minute cooking kind wouldn't take any special kind of equipment. Cooking the oat groats, you either need something where you can do a slow cooking throughout the day, or you need an Instapot, which you can put the groats on at night and run it we do ours for 30 minutes. I think Scott does his, 40. You go online, you can do any number. We did 18 for a lot of years or months. And so there's a lot of different times you can use, and you can adapt how firm the oat is based upon how long you cook it for.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. That's very helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Carol.
Can I chime in on that subject? I was not really finding myself very satisfied with regular oatmeal, and decided to try the oat groats. I found first that they're a lot less expensive. You can buy, I think, I don't know if it's 8 or 16 ounces at Natural Grocers for like $1.69. But I mean, I get several servings out of that, and I cook it ahead in a Instapot, and I think I'm doing like you. I started at 18, and I think I'm maybe up to 30, possibly even 40. I'd have to look at my notes, but it really reminds me of brown rice. In fact, I have to look at it real hard because I do brown rice and I freeze them. And I always have to look carefully to make sure I'm getting the right one. But I've also tried it savory. I did that yesterday for breakfast with some vegetables and really liked it savory also. So for what that's worth.
Nice. Savory, of course, would be not sweet, like putting in fruit and cinnamon and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I most often have it with cinnamon and fruit, sometimes berries, sometimes apples, but savory is vegetables and a little bit of a marinade, and I really liked that too for a change. So just give me some choices. It doesn't always have to be cinnamon and fruit.
Great. There's a note in the chat, then we'll get to you, Doug. It's from Karen. It says, does Instapot get so hot or pressure cause less nutrients? And so, I guess it depends on what you're cooking in it. If you're cooking groats or, probably it's not going to make much difference. If you're cooking things like greens, probably best to put them on steam. I think it's a pressure for 0 minutes steaming. That's what Gregor does. He doesn't steam them for a long time. So if you're talking about greens, you might lose a little bit, but the bottom line is however you'll eat greens, however you'll eat the food, cook it. Don't worry about losing too many nutrients from most of this. Just make it however you'll eat it, how you enjoy it. And whole buckwheat is a wonderful breakfast. Yes, it is. Buckwheat is cooked very similarly to groats or oat groats. And another name for buckwheat is kasha. And it really is a taste treat if you haven't had it before, at least for some of us. Okay, Doug, and then Sarah.
For our oats for breakfast, we put in a mixture of 4 seeds and cut up dates.
So you do raw oats?
Rolled oats.
Rolled oats.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a store that sells some extra thick rolled oats. Takes a little longer to cook. And
yeah. So extra thick would be a good choice. And by the way, you don't actually have to cook the oats. You can take oats and like granola. I sometimes use it as a snack where I'll just grab a half a cup to a cup of oats, which are not cooked. That would be the 5-minute cooking kind. And put a few raisins, a couple nuts in there, and just eat them raw. It's kind of a fun treat. For those of you who've never had that, add a little water, and it's good. Sarah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I used to just eat the oatmeal and then the steel cut oats. And then I was overcoming pre-diabetes, and I actually, won over it, which is good. But I kind of stopped the steel cut oats, and I went to like quinoa and buckwheat and brown rice, and just wondering if that is sometimes just, I mean, am I missing something with not the oats? I guess that's what I'm asking.
So in my mind, you get a little more soluble fiber with the oats than you get with quinoa or buckwheat or whatever else that you said there.
Brown rice.
Yeah, brown rice. So you get a bit more of that soluble fiber. The soluble fiber is the fiber that hooks up with excess cholesterol, hooks up with excess estrogen, so you have less breast cancer risk, less heart attack risk, and it hooks up with toxins. If you have more unsoluble fiber, that's food for your microbiome. So that those other whole grains that you mentioned, they would suppress your appetite perhaps a bit more if you were thinking of weight loss. So it kind of depends on what your goal is for your food choices. And so mixing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and not confining yourself to one would probably be a good strategy.
Okay. So add it. It's good to add it.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, having fun so far. Scott, I was thinking about playing Gregor's video on the Daily Dozen from his, his kind of thing. What do you think of that idea?
Sure. Yeah, do that.
Okay, I'm going to start with
then-
that. Just like instead of having the other demonstration, he goes over the end of the plate and stuff. So I'm going to go to that. And we can be impromptu at times. Oh, while I'm searching around for it, maybe we could have a little interruption here and have Kim share her experience at True North. So Kim, are you available to share some time? I know the group is interested in what your experiences have been. You've been twice now. You're getting to be an expert at I guess it's water fasting. Okay, fire on.
So I just got back today, and I did a 10-day water fast. It was a 14-day because you have to refeed. It sounds like cows or something, but you have to refeed after you've gone through the fast, and they ease you into it with juices first. So it's medically supervised, medically controlled, and you have to get an okay and approval from your doctor. So it's actually a health center called True North in Santa Rosa, California, and it's residential. So you stay in, you have your own room and a suite, and you go to lectures and talks, and they have some activities that you can do. So you learn a lot about whole food, plant-based eating. And the director, Dr. Alan Goldheimer, he's the guy who wrote The Pleasure Trap. And the thinking is that our over processed food in the industrial complex has added so many things that make it really hard for us to resist. And those things have sugar, salt, and oil. So SOS stands for salt, oil, and sugar free. So their kitchen is SOS, and their chefs prefer SOS foods. And some people go there just to learn how to eat this way. And it's quite delicious, and it's not that expensive. The Medicare will pay, or your insurance will pay for your part of your medical part of the things, but not your stay. But it's still cheaper than a lot of medicine or a fancy resort. It's not a resort, it's not a spa. It's a medical center. He's had 24,000 people go through his program. I just talked to him today briefly, and a lot of people go there because they have chronic or acute, not necessarily acute, but illnesses that modern medicine hasn't been able to tackle. And they've had very good results, like lymphoma and diabetes and heart hypertension and heart trouble. So yeah, for me, it's it's not so hard to do, even though everyone says how can you do that? I couldn't possibly do that. After 2 or 3 days of not eating, your body gets used to it. You kind of lose your appetite, you get into ketosis. So you conserve your energy. They don't want you to do exercise. They want you to just, be mindful of, this process and rest and sleep and stay in ketosis so that the toxins will leave your body. So inflammation will go down and so that you can learn how to eat properly when you go out. So I think I've covered the basics. And it's really lovely because the community who's there is all health oriented and they have great stories to exchange, and it's a very supportive community. And I love my doctor. She's a naturopathic doctor, but she's extremely well versed in health and nutrition and everything. So there you have it.
Any questions from the audience? Or the gallery?
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Can you tell us about your experience day 1 compared to day 14? How your journey, how it went.
Well, day 1, you still eat. So, and the last day you eat again. So it's sandwiched in there is eat, and then the next day is probably juice, and then the next day is maybe juice. And then I was on a broth, which was no Great Shakes broth. It was just kale and zucchini. So I was on a broth, it had no calories. So I was on a broth and water fast because I have a factor Leiden 5, so there's a possibility of a stroke. So they gave me that for the electrolytes. So I did that for 9 days, and then you start having juices again for 2 days, and then you have raw vegetables, and then you have raw vegetables and fruit, and then the next day is raw vegetables and fruit and steamed vegetables, and the next day it's grains added to that, and the final day is legumes. So today I came home with like a tower of boxes that they gave me to take home, because they make sure that you leave with some, so that you have food for the next few days. So I could eat anything. And the quality of the food is wonderful. They have 2 chefs that are really great. They've written cookbooks. They give cooking classes. And everyone says, well, how can you watch a cooking class or a cooking demo if you're not eating? Well, it's weird, but you can watch and absorb it. You don't taste it, but you can smell it and you can see how it's done. So they probably do 6 cooking demos a week, and they have lectures every day, and they have exercise stuff and balance stuff, and they have 2 chiropractors or several chiropractors on staff. So some people get bored. I didn't get bored at all. You can take your books. I took some art projects, and I did an art night because they have a dining room where they can do it's like a multi-purpose area. It's very social, very friendly. So yeah, you wake up at 7:30 or so, you go to bed whenever you can. You're not locked in. You can wander off, you don't have to stay there. And if you don't like the program, you can just tell your doctor and leave. Or as I was saying before, you can go without having the medical supervision and just stay as a resident and eat the food. If you're not used to that kind of food, it would be a really good way for you to get an introduction to, and also you can go attend the classes. So you would learn a lot about whole food plant-based eating and the science behind it and the benefits. And honestly, I've probably have talked to since I've been there twice, 20, 25 people, and the results are remarkable. People are coming back because they've gotten over diabetes and hypertension and even lymphoma and some other more serious diseases. So yeah, I think what happens is your body detoxes and the inflammation goes down. And whether or not that returns kind of depends on you. If you continue with the whole food plant-based diet, or if you go back to the standard American processed. So it was a really positive experience. Next time I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for 2 weeks fasting. So that means I'll be there for 3 weeks. So that's kind of, you have your private space, and you can get a room with a bathroom, and that's a little bit more expensive. Or you have a shared area. Like they have suites, kind of like a dorm. It's not fancy. It's not a spa. Although they do have massage therapists there, and there's a facialist and stuff, but it's not a spa. So there you have it.
Sounds like if you keep doing this, you're going to be, could be part of their paid staff, influencing the rest of the world coming to use that facility. Are there any other questions from anybody out in the gallery here? We really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. You've done that all along for, month after month, and followed along with what we're doing here. You've been so supportive, and we're grateful for all your contribution.
It's been 4 years.
Wow.
And in the chat, Kim, people were asking why you do it, why you go there.
I did it because I kind of fell off the wagon. I like to bake, and I do follow whole food plant-based, but you can make still high calorie food. And so I was gaining weight, and I didn't like it, and I was getting aches and pains. So I wanted to lose weight, that, and to restart and, get back to, the program. And it's interesting. The day I started eating again, I was walking upstairs to my room, and I felt stuff like, oh, what was that? That's an ache that I haven't had. When I was on it, my hip didn't hurt. My shoulder didn't hurt. I mean, it sounds kind of hokey, and it sounds like, this is not real science, but anecdotally, it did seem to make a difference in my own body. Not to mention losing the weight, which is going to have an impact on my joints. So.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much again for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go now and share my screen, and I'm going to take you all to nutritionfacts.org. Let's see, I think I have the share screen on. Let's see, to optimize it, share it. Now we're going to go to nutritionfacts.org. We're going to do a search. I want to show you how to do this. It's called Daily Dozen. You can do this on your own phone, but this is a quick little video that you may want to share with others if someone is asking, well, what is it that you actually do? And so here's the Daily Dozen checklist.
In my book, How Not to Die, I suggest we try to center our diets around whole plant foods. But some plants are healthier than others. For example, you can apparently live extended periods eating practically nothing but white potatoes. That would, by definition, be a whole food plant-based diet, but not a very healthy one. All plant foods are not created equal. The more I researched over the years, the more I've come to realize that healthy foods are not necessarily interchangeable. Some foods and food groups have special nutrients not found in abundance elsewhere. For example, sulforaphane, the amazing liver enzyme detox-boosting compound, is derived nearly exclusively from cruciferous vegetables. You could eat tons of other kinds of greens and vegetables on a given day and get no appreciable sulforaphane if you didn't eat something cruciferous. It's the same with flax seeds and the anti-cancer lignan compounds. Flax may average 100 times more lignans than other foods. And mushrooms aren't even plants at all. They belong to an entirely different biological classification and may contain nutrients like ergothioneine not made anywhere in the plant kingdom. So technically, maybe I should be referring to a whole food, plant, and fungus-based diet, but that just sounds kind of gross. It seems like every time I come home from the medical library buzzing with some exciting new data, my family rolls their eyes, sighs, and asks, "What can't we eat now?" Or they'll say, "Wait a second, why does everything seem to have parsley in it all of a sudden," or something. They're very tolerant. As the list of foods I try to fit into my daily diet grew, I made a checklist and had it up on a little dry erase board on the fridge, and we'd make a game out of ticking off the boxes. This evolved into my daily dozen, the checklist of all the things I try to fit into my daily routine. By beans, I mean legumes, which also include split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. While eating a bowl of pea soup or dipping carrots into hummus may not seem like eating beans, it certainly counts. We should try to get 3 servings a day. A serving is defined as a quarter of a cup of hummus or bean dip, half cup of cooked beans, split peas, lentils, tofu, or tempeh, or a full cup of fresh peas or sprouted lentils. Though peanuts are technically legumes, nutritionally I've grouped them in the nuts category, just as I would shunt green beans, snap peas, and string beans into the other vegetables category. A serving of berries is a half cup fresh or frozen, or quarter cup of dried. While biologically speaking, avocados, bananas, and even watermelons are technically berries, I'm using the colloquial term for any small edible fruit, which is why I include kumquats and grapes, and raisins, as well as fruits that are typically thought of as berries, but actually technically aren't, such as blackberries, cherries, mulberries, raspberries, and strawberries. For other fruits, a serving is a medium-sized fruit, a cup of cut-up fruit, or a quarter cup of dried fruit. Again, I'm using the colloquial rather than the botanical definition, so I place tomatoes in the other vegetables group. Common cruciferous vegetables include broccoli, cabbage, collards, and kale. I recommend at least 1 serving a day, typically a half cup, and at least 2 additional servings of greens a day, cruciferous or otherwise. Serving sizes for other greens and vegetables are a cup for raw leafy vegetables, a half cup for other raw or cooked non-leafy vegetables, and a quarter cup for dried mushrooms. Everyone should try to incorporate 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds into their daily diet, in addition to a serving of nuts or other seeds. A quarter cup of nuts is considered a serving, or 2 tablespoons of nut or seed butters, including peanut butter. Chestnuts and coconuts, though, don't nutritionally count as nuts. I also recommend 1/4 teaspoon a day of the spice turmeric, along with any other salt-free herbs and spices you may enjoy. A serving of whole grains can be considered a half cup of hot cereal, such as oatmeal, cooked whole grains, or so-called pseudo-grains like amaranth, buckwheat, and quinoa, or a half cup of cooked pasta or corn kernels, a cup of ready-to-eat cold cereal, 1 tortilla or slice of bread, half a bagel or English muffin, or 3 cups of air-popped popcorn. The serving size in the beverage category is 1 glass, 12 ounces, and the recommended 5 glasses a day is in addition to the water you get naturally from the foods in your diet. I explain my rationale in my video, How Many Glasses of Water Should We Drink a Day? Finally, I advise 1 daily serving of exercise, which can be split up over the day. I recommend 90 minutes of moderate-intensity activity each day, such as brisk 4 miles per hour walking, or 40 minutes of vigorous activity, such as jogging or active sports, each day. I explain my reasoning for that in my video, How Much Should You Exercise? This may all sound like a lot of boxes to check, but it's easy to knock off a bunch at a time. In 1 simple peanut butter banana sandwich, and you just checked off 4 boxes. Or imagine sitting down to a big salad, 2 cups of spinach, a handful of arugula, a handful of walnuts, a half cup of chickpeas, a half cup of red bell pepper, and a small tomato. You just knocked out 7 boxes in 1 dish. Sprinkle on your flax, add a handful of goji berries, and enjoy it with a glass of water and fruit for dessert, and you just wiped out nearly half your daily check boxes in a single meal. And then if you just ate it on your treadmill— just kidding. Do I check off each glass of water I drink? No. In fact, I don't even use the checklist anymore. I just used it initially as a tool to get me into a routine. Whenever I was sitting down to a meal, I would ask myself, could I add greens to this? Could I add beans to this? I mean, I always have an open can of beans in the fridge. Can I sprinkle on some flax or pumpkin seeds or maybe some dried fruit? The checklist just got me into the habit of thinking, how can I make this meal even healthier? I also found the checklist help with grocery shopping. Although I always keep bags of frozen berries and greens in the freezer, if I'm at the store and want to buy fresh produce for the week, it helps me figure out how much kale or blueberries I need. The checklist also helps me picture what a meal might look like. I mean, looking over the checklist, you'll see that there are 3 servings each of beans, fruits, and whole grains, and about twice as many vegetables in total than any other component. So glancing at my plate, I can imagine 1/4 of it filled with grains, 1/4 with legumes, and a half of the plate filled with vegetables, along with maybe a side salad and fruit for dessert. I happen to like one-bowl meals where everything's mixed together, but the checklist still helps me to visualize. Right? Instead of a big bowl of spaghetti with some veggies and lentils on top, I think of a big bowl of vegetables with some pasta and lentils mixed in. Instead of a big plate of quinoa with some stir-fried vegetables on top, I picture a meal that's mostly vegetables, and oh look, there's some quinoa and beans in there too. But there's no need to be obsessive about the daily dozen. On hectic travel days when I've burned through my snacks, stuck in some airport food court somewhere, sometimes I'm lucky if I even hit 1/4 of my goals. Right? If you eat poorly one day, just try to eat better the next. To help track your progress, volunteers created Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen apps for both iPhone and Android. You can download and use them both for free, no ads, no cost. My hope is that the checklist will just serve as a helpful reminder to try to eat a variety of some of the healthiest foods every day.
Okay, so any questions about that? Any thoughts from anybody before I share a few real food pictures? Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I want to go back to a question from a couple of weeks ago. You talked quickly about chia seed and flax seeds for omega-3s, and I can't remember the scientific names for the
Lignans that come with them,
yeah, and you
the omega-3.
and how they're converted from flax seeds and chia seeds.
Yeah, so it's the ALA. So chia
Yeah.
seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, they're full of the ALA, alpha linolenic acid, which is the precursor to omega-3, and then it has to be elongated to the DHA EPA. And so what helps for that to happen is to keep your omega-6 fats low. So omega-6 fats are also essential fatty acids, but we get plenty of those from just the foods we eat, this whole plant foods we eat, but then they're really high in things like processed foods. So the seed oils and the nut oils and things like that, they're really high in omega-6. So things that are in packages and processed, the fats that are in there have a lot of omega-6, and omega-6 actually competes with the same enzymes that elongate that ALA to the DHA EPA. So that's not good. So if you are still eating a lot of omega-6, then you're not going to make enough of the long chain omega-3s from the chia seeds, the flax seeds, and the walnuts. And so you want to also make sure you're cutting way down on your omega-6 fats from those processed foods, and then you'll make plenty of the long chain from the short chain. And then the other way to get a little bit extra long chain is to you could take an omega-3 supplement made from algae, because algae from the sea actually has the long chain already. The only other way to get it then is through fish, but we don't recommend getting it through fish because then you're getting all the microplastics, methylmercury, dioxins, other toxins in the fish because you're eating up higher on the food chain. But the fish got it from the algae, just so you can too. So you can do that, or just really make sure you're getting plenty of the short chain omega-3, ALA from those nuts and seeds, and then just cutting way down on the omega-6 from the processed fats, processed oils.
Okay, and I think I heard Charlie say at the end of the discussion a few weeks ago that there is some uh, differing opinions about whether or not that conversion is that important. Is that right?
Yeah,
Well, it's with the supplements mostly. Whether you need to have a supplement for a long chain is what kind of seems to be the science is kind of going back and forth on.
Okay.
yeah. You'll hear, if you listen to Dr. Clapper for a while, he decided not to use DHA supplement. And I think this last year, within the last 6 months, he decided to go ahead and use it to kind of hedge the bets, is what he said. But then you hear from other people who say the science may not support it, that the papers it was originally decided to use it were formulated by people who are selling the supplement.
Okay.
And so they might have been tainted somehow, the data. And so it's still up in the air as to whether one should take DHA supplement or not. I choose not to take it. Why? I don't know. Other than
Well, you're doing pretty good so far, it looks
I'm
like.
doing pretty good so far. I think it's because my wife had her level tested by mistake and it was normal and we eat pretty similarly, although that doesn't mean that I metabolize it in the same way she does. But I'm really feeling pretty good. And I don't know, I tend to be more of a minimalist and say to myself, we've lived on this planet a long time with less supplements, and supplements are not particularly regulated.
Yeah.
So I don't know that DHA EPA supplements are any more regulated than any other supplement, and you may or may not be getting what you are paying for. Some people have a relief, or in their mind, they feel they may be warding off dementia and other things by taking that supplement. And I think the neurologists, the surgeons, don't they recommend taking it, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. At least when they wrote their book, they did.
Yeah. And so, there are some people who really feel it's important and other people don't. I guess you have to just decide with yourself and with what you read and with your doctor perhaps what is going to be best for you and what you're going to feel best about. And we do not have a definite answer right now as to
Okay,
do
well,
with vitamin B12. Take it.
I do take that. I'm taking that and an iodine supplement, but
Okay.
that is,
The other, you hear me hedging just because I don't know.
I appreciate that. And the only processed food I really eat is most of my beans I'm doing in the Instant Pot, but I really love the organic refried pinto beans. And so I have a can of that from time to time.
And are you doing well, not having to take medicine or whatever?
Yep.
Okay, so good. If you're not having to take medicines, you feel good, keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, I'll do it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I want to share a few little pictures with you, and then I'll leave some time for some more questions as best as I can. I'm going to go to the share zone again. And on this share zone, I'm going to come up with some food pictures. So we're going to start with breakfast. And so I'm going to open this up. Now, I don't want you to get scared off. This is not a breakfast that you have to eat. If you notice, Dr. Greger had a lot of color in the foods that he was eating. And if you'll notice in the foods that my wife and I are eating, we have a lot of color, and it makes it attractive. It makes it fun. And we want this to be fun and attractive. We don't want this to be a pain or a chore for you. And a lot of you may say, well, I don't like to spend time in the kitchen. I don't like to chop. I don't like. Well, I didn't even make oatmeal for myself, really, or boil water for years and years. And And so yet the time I spend now with my wife after we go for our walk in the morning, making our breakfast together has become kind of a fun activity for me. I never thought that would be the case. So in order for this to be fun, what I do is I grab out a few cherry tomatoes in the morning, wash them. This is one plate. And then my wife has a similar plate. And then I put with that, I cut up a small clove of garlic. I chop it up either this fine or maybe even finer and eat it raw. It's kind of like eating electricity, which is kind of fun for me. And it was fun for my grandkids to eat electricity. And then we might put a Brazil nut in 2 or 3 times a week. They're small Brazil nuts. So those are kind of first 3. And then I may add into this. I grow my own mung beans. They take 2 or 3 days to sprout. And so I put in maybe 1/4 cup of these mung beans. And then with the mung beans, I put 1 little jalapeno pepper, a little slice, and chop it up finer than the garlic. Just gives a little added flavor. And then I actually peel an orange and maybe a cutie, and I share that half and half with my wife. If we have peaches, might do a little peach or other kind of fruit. We might get a few grapes to put in here, maybe a strawberry. We just like to put different colors. And then, of course, we're going to add some broccoli. We do about 1/2 cup of broccoli. And then my wife steams greens. We started with 1 leaf of dark green leafy. It was a romaine lettuce, progressed to a leaf of kale and a leaf of collard, and then did a leaf of both of them, and then a leaf of chard added to that. We're up to about 2 leaves of kale, 2 leaves of chard, 2 leaves of collard greens, which my wife chops up and steams. And so we each get about 1.5 cups of these dark green leafies. And then she puts some beans, 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of beans, and then a little turmeric on top of that all. Here's another breakfast which shows the beans on top of the steamed greens. This has a little radish. Now, the point is, you don't have to have everything every morning. You don't have to have any of this. But it is helpful to know that having some fruit, having vegetables, having legumes, having dark green leafies, having whole grain with each of your meals is really a healthy way to eat. And you see that we have 1/2 cup of blueberries. They're generally frozen unless they're in season. And my mouth's watering as I'm talking to you about this. Occasionally we'll add a little pepper. You see the breakfasts are slightly different because the beans are a little different, or we might use arugula and spinach in here on top of a leaf of radicchio. And then occasionally I'll grow some sprouts, broccoli or radish. I've been doing them almost every day the last several months. So we have just a small amount of that with here's some greens and some broccoli and some beans. And then there's a mushroom, a little garlic. This is jicama. This is a dried apple, or it could be a pear. The bottom line is you don't have to eat the same thing every single day, but this is just half of our breakfast. Fills us up, and this is the second half of our breakfast, the whole grain. I like mine more savory, so I just eat it plain with a little soy or oat or almond milk. I make my own soy milk, so that's what we've gotten used to. But these are groats. It's a full cup that's cooked up, and get about maybe 2 cups worth with them cooked. My wife likes hers more sweet, so she'll put the blueberries and strawberries and here cranberries into her groats, and she likes oat milk. Here is bulgur, which is another whole grain. If you don't like oats, can't stand them, then you can do wheat like bulgur, or you could do buckwheat, or you can do quinoa. So many different options. This is what our counter looked like a couple years ago. It's fruit and veggies. My son came up with this lunch for us. We went up to his place. It was a plant-based. You can make your tacos. Scott mentioned the taco bar, and you can have other assorted issues if you choose. If you have family members who are not whole food plant-based, they can put on what they want onto the tortilla shells, and you can stay totally whole food plant-based if you have the opportunity. You can make some cookie treats if you want. They're not as sweet as the sweets you'll get out of the bakery. But let me tell you, my mouth is watering now with these roasted sweet potatoes. I think these were out of the air fryer, but you can just roast them in your oven on a pan with a parchment sheet, a cookie dish with a parchment sheet. You don't have to use oil with them. And you can put a little spice on here if you like. My wife got in the habit of making a few buns. They're spelt buns. She makes them herself. I think they have a touch of oil in them, and so she doesn't make them very often. This is a salad. You can't live on salad alone. It has too low of a calorie density, which Scott is going to talk to you about this next Friday. So come, it's an important lecture. You really want to hear what he has to say about calorie density. I just want to share a few more colorful pictures. These are sweet potatoes on a bed of greens. Maybe there's some rice underneath there. Maybe there's potatoes. This has tofu, which I never used to like, and now my mouth waters when my wife puts that chopped up tofu. It's all it is crushed edamame. Puts it into a bag with nutritional yeast and coconut aminos. It's like, wow, mouth watering. And you see there's a bed of rice. Yeah, Scott said calorie density is next Tuesday also. So Friday at the Grange and then next Tuesday. You know, they're duplicate classes. And then here is carrots and asparagus. Boy, eating them without too much sauce is really flavorful. Your tongue really, wow, this is pretty tasty stuff after you've had it a few times. Mushrooms I couldn't stand in the past, and now I kind of look forward to them in the morning. You can make these chowder. This is potatoes and beans and corn and veggies. Mouth watering. You can even eat flowers occasionally, nasturtium. I thought that was kind of weird, but tastes pretty good. And this is tofu with potatoes. Let me tell you, it's as good a tasting thing as a stir-fry egg potato dish that I used to have in the past. Beets, or let's see, this is a little kimchi or sauerkraut. Fermented is healthy. Squash is healthy. Tofu. And then I don't know what this is, some greens, nutritional yeast. You can have stir fries. You can add a little of this processed whole wheat pasta. You know, we don't eat a lot of it, but occasionally for a fun treat, we might eat it. But frittata, now that is tofu with vegetables in it. And it's, again, I almost have to get a cup. My mouth is watering so much. Here is a simple dinner. You throw a baked potato, like this is a sweet potato or a baked potato, put it in the microwave or roast it in the oven, then throw on some beans, put on whatever salsa you want, have a couple handfuls of greens, and then for dessert, have fruit. And man, you've got an easy meal, which is almost a no-cook meal, actually. It's so quick, it's so easy. You can have it for lunch, for dinner. And then there's stir fries. These take a little longer because you have to either open the packages and put this in, or you have to chop it up yourself. These are edamame beans, which if you don't like beans or lentils, learn to like edamame. It's really a healthy legume, and it's got a different flavor and texture, and I think you really like it. Okay, other veggies. There's rice in here. These are cut up beets. Here's the edamame. This, I think, is some squash. So you see there's such a variety. These are gold beets. This is tempeh, which is like tofu, but it's fermented edamame beans. And let's see, another kind of stew. My wife will occasionally make pizza. Notice, no cheese, lots of marinara sauce. This is artichoke and squash and mushroom and onion and garlic. And again, a mouth-watering treat. Our granddaughters love this dish. Green vegetables, but you have to not just eat green vegetables. You have to have a little starch, like potatoes or rice or oats or quinoa or some grain to add to give you a few calories. Again, lots of greens, lots of color. And these are how I've been growing the sprouts. I don't do this many anymore. I usually do a couple jars a week of radish and broccoli. I used to grow sunflower seeds. They're a little hard. They take 10 days and they really are a taste thrill, but they're a little bit too much work for my appetite. And even our dog in the past, she knew what healthy eating was like. Macy eating her broccoli stems and pepper with her tongue, showing you how flavorful and tasteful a whole food plant-based diet can be. Take a lead from her. You'll be happier, you'll be healthier, and that's all I have to offer for now. Time for questions. That was fun for me.
Is anybody hungry? I'm hungry.
So is the doggy purely vegan?
Yeah, and actually, as an aside or a sidebar on that, I have a vet friend, a couple of them down in California. They worked on a formula called V-Dog, V like vegan dog. And dogs require a certain amino acid, which they incorporated into this food. And so they have done studies on dogs over, I think it's a year, 2 or 3 year period, and they found there no increase in disease, no decreased longevity. It's dogs and actually even cats could eat this type of food without having to depend on animals.
Great.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sarah next, and then whoever else raises their hand. If you put it in the chat, I'll call you next, or I'll still call on you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. You know, in the other, on the video that you showed today of the preparation, the woman that was doing preparation in the kitchen, she talked about frozen tofu. I was just wondering if you had any experience with that. I don't know about that.
My wife says it's too mushy for her. She's never liked doing frozen tofu. And so that's my wife's personal experience. I don't know. Does anybody else use frozen tofu?
Because the woman said, oh, it's more meat-like. That's what I thought she said, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
she said that, yeah. She thaws it out, but maybe it changes the texture once it's been frozen and then thawed back out. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I use it a lot, and if you squeeze out the moisture, you can use it for tofu scramble, or you can marinate it for tofu strips and stuff in the oven. If you just like put it in the oven, or not the oven, but the air fryer,
So
and you can
after
marinate
freezing,
it.
so you freeze it?
This is after freezing, and some
Okay.
recipes call for frozen, so I keep them in the freezer just because it's a certain texture that it's kind of spongy, but it's not terrible.
She did mention the best, safest way to thaw that out is either, she said, in the refrigerator, and it takes 2 or 3 days for her to thaw out this frozen
It
tofu.
does, because it's a block of ice, so it takes some time. I leave it out, but
Kim, do you buy the hard tofu or medium? You know, firm?
Usually if you're gonna freeze it, buy the firm.
Firm, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We'll see.
And we buy extra firm oftentimes,
We do. Yeah.
when we're using it, not frozen.
Mm. Thank you.
Doug. Unmute yourself first. There you go.
I drink a lot of soy milk. Is it would be better to be eating tofu?
I don't know better. It depends on what your goals are. You're not getting as much soy from the soy milk as you're getting from tofu or from tempeh or from edamame. So if you're trying to incorporate some extra soy into your diet, I would incorporate those into your diet. Dr. Greger recommends no more than 3 to 5 servings a day, which is a lot of servings. So, yeah, I would say if you wanted slightly healthier, I would go to edamame, tempeh, or tofu, as opposed to depending on soy milk to get your soy.
Okay.
Hey, Charlie, I have a question and I can't raise my hand for some
Okay,
reason.
Ken, I can hear you and you can go ahead.
How many people press the soy? I've never not done it. Is that a waste of time? Because some restaurants, I can tell they didn't, and it's still really good.
You mean press it so that you squeeze out the water? Is that what you mean
Yeah.
by prep, or marinate it?
Well, I marinate it after I press it. So I think the kind of press it with some books or something for half an hour and then let it sit a while and it kind of gets some of its size back. And then I marinate it in all kinds of stuff, basically.
I don't have the answer to that. Are there any cooks in the room here that are used to using tofu that know how long they press it for?
I think the question is, do you press it at all? Because
Yes,
I don't
I
have to
do for
very
like
long.
about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to really
No.
smash a lot of water out. But do most people
Press it.
cook it without pressing it?
I usually just do it for about 15 minutes.
What was that?
And our family, we use it a lot in soups, you know? Yeah.
So you don't have to press it then.
No.
Sure, but it's white candy enough.
Charlie's got a fire sprinkler in his house.
Yeah, my wife says that she wraps up the tofu in a towel and just rings it and doesn't spend a lot of time with prepping it.
No, it doesn't take long.
Okay. All right, Nancy.
Yeah, so I made a pizza the other day and I used it had called for the cheese layer. Instead of using cheese, you use tofu and put I can't remember, I know it had nutritional yeast and so on and so forth in it. And I took it to a potluck and it was two fairly big pizzas and it disappeared. So it turned out pretty good. And I know you put, like I said, nutritional yeast in it. And then another question I have, is there some place online or on the internet, or not even on the internet, like in a computer, where you can store your recipes and, kind of like a recipe book? Because I just have these sheets of paper and then I go looking for a recipe and it takes me forever. So I was just wondering if anybody has any good ideas on that. No?
I know we've got 1,001 books, and my wife kind of searches around to them, but doesn't have an organization of a card catalog of the recipes that she made in the past. She kind of likes to keep life a little impromptu that way, I guess.
Mhm.
But all of us are different. Anybody have any other thoughts? Kim?
Nancy, do you have them are they paper? Are they printed?
Well, printed or handwritten out, and then I kind of have them more or less organized, but when I go to try to find something, it's like, oh, I can't find it.
They have those accordion file cases that you can
Oh.
label and put them in there if they're paper. Otherwise, I keep mine stored in albums on my computer or on Instagram.
Like you take photos of it?
Oh yeah, I have a whole section of photos saved as recipes, desserts, main courses, on my
Yeah,
as
yeah.
albums on my photos.
Your photo album. Huh, that's an idea.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
create
because I
another
get
couple
so
albums.
frustrated. Well, same thing with the cookbooks. It's like I go looking through, okay, where's this recipe that I like? And unfortunately, most of my cookbooks are still vegetarian. I haven't bought too many vegan. And then most of the time I find things on the internet because I have a garden. So I'm trying to find recipes that use what I have in the garden. And if you can look through how many cookbooks, like hundreds of them, to find the recipe. Whereas you can go online and put in, I've got kale and leeks right now. And then I really like wheat berries. Okay, what can I make with that? So that's kind of the way I go about it. But then sometimes I find something really good and then I can't find it again. So I don't know. I need some organization there.
Carol and then Doug. Carol, unmute.
I would suggest for the stuff you're finding online, when you find it on a website, there's an option usually under your file button to save things as a PDF, and you could just start get a folder in your documents file called recipes, and then put whatever name you want that you think will remind you of what that is, leeks, blah, blah, blah. And you could see them very easily that way. You could also do pictures and download them to your computer. I guess the reason I would want to download the picture to the computer is that I could make it larger by opening it up. Then I could see it just on my phone. My eyesight's getting worse and worse as I go along, so I like to see things larger.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at 8:34. One last question from Doug.
I was just going to show this, what my wife uses, calls an easy tofu press. And you just screw it down, and she says she does it for about 15 minutes.
You all got that? Tofu press. I saw something like that the other day, but I didn't see it close like this. Thank you for sharing that. All right.
What I do, real quick, I get a big plate and then I put the smaller plate on top of it, and then I have a really heavy cookbook, and that's how I press my tofu.
Well, that works too. Anyway, it's been fun being with you all. Scott's going to be with you again next week. I will too. And we look forward to having you all back here again. It's been great fun. And thank you, Kim, for sharing everything that you've been going through with the fasting. We're all fascinated by it. Scott, you have any other last words about what's going on next week or?
No, just weight management, calorie density. It's a really important topic if you're trying to lose some weight. It's real important. Or if you're even trying to maintain or gain weight, you can also apply the concepts to that. So hope you join us next week.
Yeah. So Alice, we didn't hear about Lisa and her match. What happened with that? I imagine she matched, but maybe she's just busy. And as far as the leg on another person who someone was asking about, haven't heard from her. So that's a little follow-up, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Right.
Scott.
Night.
Good night.